Some murders leave behind evidence, some leave behind witnesses, and some leave behind nothing at all. No trail, no motive, no suspect, no body, just silence. But every so often, in the rarest corners of recorded history, that silence breaks. Not because the living uncover the truth, but because the dead insist on telling it. This is Shifting Veils, and today we're stepping into that narrow, uneasy space where justice doesn't come from detectives or forensics or confessions, but from dreams, visions, trances, and voices that should not exist. Cases where the investigation had stalled, where families had given up hope, where police had no leads, no suspects, no reasons to dig deeper, until something, or someone, reached across the veil. Different centuries, different countries, different victims, but the same pattern. The dead knew what the living did not, and they refused to be ignored. These aren't ghost stories. These are documented cases where the testimony of the dead, delivered through the living, changed the outcome of real investigations. And while we've already told the story of the Greenbrier ghost in an earlier episode, the only U.S. murder case where a spirit's testimony entered the courtroom record, today we're looking into others. The ones that echo her. The ones that prove she wasn't alone. Because sometimes justice doesn't come from this side of the veil. Sometimes it comes from the other.
On February 21st, 1977, Teresita Basa, a 47-year-old respiratory therapist originally from the Philippines, finished her shift at Edgewater Hospital in Chicago and returned to her apartment. She made 2 phone calls that evening, one around 7:10 p.m. and another around 7:30 p.m., during which she mentioned she was expecting a male visitor. Around 8:40 p.m., neighbors smelled smoke and called for help. Firefighters forced entry and found Basa's body on the floor, nude with a butcher knife in her chest, and her mattress set on fire. Despite the condition of the scene, an autopsy was still able to be performed, upon which it was confirmed she had not been sexually assaulted. Police interviewed coworkers, friends, and family, but no motive, and no suspects, and no physical evidence emerged, and the case stalled. Fast forward 6 months in August of the same year, her coworker Remy Schwa, also a respiratory therapist at Edgewater Hospital, reportedly began entering trance-like states at home. According to her husband, Dr. Jose Schwa, she would speak in a different voice and identify herself as Teresita Basa, speaking in Tagalog, which is one of the primary languages spoken in the Philippines. During these episodes, the voice would say that she had been murdered, and the killer was Alan Showery, a hospital employee, and he had stolen her jewelry and given it to his girlfriend. Dr. Schwa eventually contacted detectives Joseph Stachula and Lee Eplin, who had worked the original case. They were skeptical, but noted that police had previously found a reminder in Basa's apartment: get theater tickets for AS, initials matching Alan Showery. Detectives interviewed Showery, who denied visiting Basa that night. But when they checked the jewelry described in the trance episodes, they found Basa's missing jewelry in the possession of Showery's girlfriend, who said he had given it to her. Confronted with the evidence, Showery's story collapsed. He eventually confessed to killing Basa during a robbery and setting the fire to destroy evidence. Showery was charged and appeared in court on October 2nd, 1978. And the case drew national media attention because of the unusual origin of the lead. Reporters dubbed it the Voice from the Grave case. During pretrial proceedings, the defense team included attorneys Swano Radakovich and later Karen Thompson, sister of Illinois Governor James Thompson. The arraignment took place on January 10th, 1979, before Chief Judge Richard J. Fitzgerald. Showery ultimately pleaded guilty to manslaughter, avoiding a full trial that would have required the court to address the trans testimony directly. This case is interesting because police had no suspects for months, and the only new lead came from Remy Schwa's trance episodes, which she and her husband attributed to Teresita Bassa's spirit. The information provided in those trances led detectives to physical evidence they had not previously uncovered, and that evidence directly implicated Alan Showery, who then confessed.
Ashley Lynn Howley, age 20, was last seen alive in Columbus, Ohio on June 16th, 2004. In the early morning hours, she called 911 and reported that her boyfriend, Robert McMichael II, had assaulted her. She planned to go to a friend's house later that day but never arrived. About a month later, her mother filed a missing person report, and I tried to figure out why the mother waited a month. Like, I dug through so much stuff, and they weren't estranged. Like, they talked regularly. I have no idea why this woman waited an entire month to report her daughter missing, especially after, I mean, maybe she didn't know about the 911 call. I don't know, but that's just
I,
crazy to me.
I almost wonder if maybe the daughter, Ashley did these kinds of things, like would disappear for a week or maybe a week and a half.
Maybe that's just a crazy long amount of time.
I mean, you said she was 20,
She's 20, yeah,
and
but
so
still,
you know,
I mean, if my daughter, whether we were like speaking every day or we'd go a week without speaking, whatever, it would not be a month before I reported her missing.
hmm
That's just insane to me, but
Well, see, but I mean, some parents are like that. Let me give an example here, a personal example, because nobody hears from me for like 2, 3 months, and I told you already. I think I
mhm,
mentioned it in another episode too. Is the biggest fear I have is the only way anybody's going to know that I've died or gone missing is my son coming here and noticing it, and my son being the one to say something. Nobody
that's
else would
fair.
notice.
Yeah, that's fair. Fair enough.
It's just an example. That's not proof.
No,
That's
but
just an
you're
example.
right. You're right. I mean, you're right. That's true. And there are a lot of
Some
people that live that way with,
some say some say they love you and some say they care, but they're not willing to reach out and touch base every, you know,
right.
couple weeks.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Mhm. I mean, I have people about, but there are definitely people that never check in on me
hmm
ever. Yeah. Yep. I'm home. I'm not hard to find, but
Correct.
I
Yeah.
guess sometimes people just don't want to find you.
Yeah. They don't want to make that effort.
Nope. I did it. I did it for years. I was in most of my relationships I have, I was the one that texted or called or arranged gatherings. And then one day I became not that. So,
Well,
whatever.
I I would have to say that I was the same way. The
Mhm.
getting a hold of people, reaching out and touch base with people.
I
I
felt
just
like it
gave you
was
an
my
example.
job.
Yeah, exactly. And I told you an example of that, like off recording too.
Yeah.
Um, but I think at some point I was just like, I don't want to keep trying to reel you into my life when you're making no effort to stay where I reel you to.
Right. Yeah,
You
and quite
know,
honestly, I don't make the effort all that often
r-
anymore.
correct. Yeah. You
It's
know,
not that I don't care, it's just I got tired of it being it felt one-sided whether it really was or not. I
100%.
felt like I was making the effort most of the time to make things happen, and
Well, it gets tiring when it feels like you're forcing somebody into your life
yeah,
that
it does.
pretends to enjoy being a part of your life, but never tries to be a part of your life, it's exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I understand too. Everybody has their own things happening.
Hmm.
I'm not speaking of someone that just decided not to return messages for a month out of the blue. It's not what I'm talking about. Talking about years and years of, always being the one that reached out to everybody. And yeah. And then one day I just quit. And suddenly I wasn't talking to anybody because I quit. I
Hmm.
quit being the one that reached out. So yeah. Anyway, I don't feel sorry for myself over it. It's quite
You
peaceful.
shouldn't. Yeah, you shouldn't. Well, we I my so like part of that is like always trying to get them to come and see their grandkid, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you act and pretend that you sit there and say, well, why aren't we so close? And it's like you make all the effort for all the other kids, but you don't make any effort towards my kids. So it's your own fault.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Long rabbit trail. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
about a month later, Ashley Lynn Halley's mom filed a missing person report. Around the same time, Ashley's vehicle was found abandoned in a parking lot. Police suspected McMichael but had no physical evidence, and the case went cold. You skip ahead to 2005, and Michigan psychic medium Christy Robinette said she was awakened one night by the spirit of a young woman who identified herself as Ashley and said she had been murdered. Robinette stated she had no prior knowledge of the case and searched online to confirm the missing person report. Robinette contacted authorities and was eventually put in touch with Ashley's family after she provided a detailed description of the clothing Ashley was last seen wearing, which matched known information. According to Robinette, Ashley's spirit repeatedly appeared to her, giving details about her murder, the involvement of her boyfriend Robert McMichael, and the general location of her remains. Robinette, along with Ashley's family, visited the area Ashley allegedly described. The psychic believed they had found the correct site, but police could not dig because it was a private property. In December 2007, McMichael murdered his mother and her boyfriend. He was arrested and charged in early 2008, and during the investigation, authorities also charged him in connection with Ashley Halley's disappearance. In April 2008, Ashley's skeletal remains were discovered in a wooded area beside the Olentangy River in northern Franklin County, the same area Robinette had pointed to years earlier. Her body had been concealed in quick cement, and she was identified through dental records. McMichael ultimately pled guilty to multiple murders and is serving life without parole. That's wild. So, this medium that's nowhere near this case doesn't know this family, didn't have any prior knowledge about it. Like, it, the whole time I'm thinking, why did Ashley choose her? And I guess it's
Mhm.
just somebody that would listen. But that's just wild to me. But I'm glad that Robinette had the gall, was brave enough to approach the family and not just dismiss it, you know?
I think that's a I think that's a hard thing to do both on both ends because you have somebody coming to you and a lot of people don't believe in like mediums and stuff and there are a lot of art scam artists out there that take on
Mhm.
the name of medium.
Yeah.
Um but I do believe that there are mediums out there and for her to come in like you said is a brave thing to do because she could very much so be ridiculed and probably even have a negative effect on her business as a medium if she does have a
Mhm.
business as a medium.
Yeah.
But also the family to actually take the information and go somewhere with it. Um, Good on both of them.
Yeah. It's kind of neat. Kind of a neat case.
The
Too bad that it couldn't bring sooner justice to everything, but it was just
right.
kind of like a after the fact. Oh, hey, well, this is the same spot she said it was. So,
Hmm.
good to know now. And I wonder how the police department felt, not trying to pursue, even though it was private property, not trying to push for, um, like a warrant to search the area, you know, or
Right.
something. They were just like, oh, we can't touch it, kind of thing.
Hmm.
And then she was found in cement, you know. So,
Yeah. I I always get curious when it comes to mediums because being a medium isn't just having that ability, but having a medium is also reading situations and people, body language, and the things that are going on around them.
mhm,
Um,
definitely.
and so I wonder how much of it was her ability and how much of it was her seeing the situation. Because you said she was so far enough away.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I was just that wasn't a
she
question.
wasn't
I was just curious.
she wasn't close to the situation at all.
Hmm.
She had everything I found. She had to look online trying to find a case
Right.
that this spirit matched,
Hmm.
and
It's
determine, like discernment, I guess, discern that this is who's speaking to her. Is
right.
this case
Yeah.
she's looking at online.
It's a curious thing. It's a very curious thing.
Yeah.
George Carroll, a Korean War veteran, vanished from his Lake Grove, Long Island home in 1963, leaving behind his wife, Dorothy Carroll, and 4 young children. For decades, Dorothy told the children that their father had simply walked out to buy cigarettes and never returned. Is that where that comes from?
Maybe.
Your dad just went out and got cigarettes and a gallon of milk. He just went right down the road.
Mhm.
The children grew up believing their father had abandoned them. And over the years, extended family members speculated that George might have been killed and buried under the house. And you might be asking yourself, why? For starters, no missing person report was ever filed. Dorothy rarely mentioned George, and soon after her husband was out of the picture, she went on to marry Richard Darris, the family's live in handyman, who was hired by George for a construction project before he disappeared. Later, when the children had become adults, they would say that it wasn't a happy home, and Darris was physically and sexually abusive. With the extended family's speculations and their desire for the truth, the Carroll children eventually consulted a psychic medium. The medium told the Carroll children that their father never left them. She
Uh,
said, I channeled the father who came in with his head bashed in. He told me Richard killed him and buried him in the basement. So I asked them who was Richard, and they started screaming. They said it was their stepfather who wasn't that nice. These claims were not acted on for decades, but they stayed with the family. In 2018, George's son, Michael Carroll, then in his 60s, began digging through the basement floor of the family home. He had that it's so fucking long. That's such a long fucking time to wait to dig into that basement, man.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, this has been their whole
1963,
life. He's 60.
2018.
He's in his 60s. This was their entire life.
I know, but I mean, at some point in like my 20s or 30s, I feel like I would have done something sooner, but in your 60s, I'm too old to fucking dig up a basement, man.
Maybe. I mean, maybe life was busy. Maybe they had
Yeah.
kids, maybe they had divorces, maybe they had lots of things.
Don't you think you'd like look for your dad? That's what a way it is a lot of times anymore. Is like you look for your dad in your 20s or 30s because you're curious. Why
Oh,
the fuck did
I'd
you
be
abandon
like,
me?
the first time I had a bunch of people over to drink some beer and play cards, I'd be like, "Hey, you guys want to dig in my basement? There's some family lore. It'd
See,
be
you get the
fun."
mentality then.
I would have like been like, I got some. I have like two shovels and three garden spades. Let's go down there.
Look, I got a bit of information from a medium. And I need to find out the answer. Will you help me dig up my basement?
Oh,
That's the mentality I would have.
I would have approached it like a paint party. Like we're all just gonna go down there and throw some dirt around and drink beer. you know? Until it'd be all fun, shits and giggles until we gotta call the cops because we found bones, you know? Then the weight of the reality of the whole situation would hit me after that,
Yeah,
but yeah,
well, probably the next morning after the beers left their system.
right? Yeah, but no, yeah, you're right, I would've done it sooner, but,
But I mean, like you said, things do get busy, but it feels like that's like a pressing matter for a lot of children who grew up without dads or moms, where they're like, I want to confront them. Why the fuck did you leave our family behind? My mom or my dad suffered because of you, and so did we. And we had to grow up in a one parent, household. Why
yeah.
why did you leave us in that situation? Why have you left us so monetarily scarred, so emotionally scarred? Why have you left us this way? It's just a confrontation I feel like somebody would do well before their 60s.
It's hard to say, I mean, there's a lot of this is would seem like just family lore at
Mhm.
this point. The
Sure.
entire family suspected, and oh, there's a psychic, and don't really know for sure about those. So it's
Sure.
just I don't know.
I
Maybe
guess
it was a
it's
wanting to know, but also not wanting to know. Because how tragic is that?
that's a big possibility. You're right. Yeah.
You learn what happened really to your dad, but then you also learn who your mom really was. And,
And,
you know,
and maybe they grew up thinking, it's done. What's done is done. They're gone.
right.
They're not in our life. We don't need them. I don't need to know more. Maybe that's the mental space they were in. I don't know. He had suffered a stroke and needed help, so his sons Chris Carroll and Mike Jr. joined the excavation. They dug for months, driven by the long standing belief that their father might be buried there. On the eve of Halloween in 2018, Chris's shovel struck something that looked like rags and bones. When they looked closer, they realized it was human remains. Authorities confirmed the remains were, in fact, George Carroll, who had been missing for 55 years. The skull showed blunt force trauma indicating homicide. The body had been buried directly beneath the basement floor of the family home. And they dug specifically because of the long standing family speculation and the psychic medium's belief that he was under the basement, not because of new police evidence, and the remains were found exactly where the psychic and family lore indicated. Police had no active investigation and no forensic leads for 55 years. The discovery came solely from the family's persistence. There has been no arrest in the murder. Dorothy Carroll, the only adult present at the time of George's disappearance, died in 1998. Even then, isn't there a clause that after so many years you can't be arrested for a crime or something like that?
Um, yeah, I don't know. Cause I mean, there were, like, in recent history, weren't there, like, Nazi scientists and soldiers that were, like, went to trial and imprisoned for their
Were,
crimes during World War
were there?
II? I think so.
Well, I mean, see, I mean, like you bring in the whole case of P Diddy, and there's a like half his cases fell off because they happened too long ago or some shit like that.
Maybe there's certain stipulations within that, but yeah, I don't know. In the rural village of Polstead, Suffolk, England, 25-year-old Maria Martin left home dressed in men's clothing to meet her lover, William Corder, at a local landmark known as the Red Barn. They planned to elope to Ipswich. She was never seen alive again. Corder later wrote letters to Maria's family claiming she was safe and married and living elsewhere, but he never allowed her to write to them herself. The family grew suspicious as the excuses piled up. Months passed with no sign of Maria. Then her stepmother, Anne Martin, began having a series of vivid recurring dreams. In each dream, she saw Maria's body buried inside the red barn in the exact spot where she had last been seen. Anne insisted the dreams were not imagination but messages, visions showing where Maria lay. After weeks of pressure, Maria's father finally agreed to investigate. Maria's father went to the Red Barn and dug beneath the grain storage area. There, exactly where Anne's dreams had pointed, he uncovered Maria's buried remains. Her body had been hastily concealed, and a handkerchief belonging to Corder was found knotted around her neck. The discovery confirmed that Maria had been murdered and that Corder's letters were deliberate lies. After the body was found, authorities launched a search for William Corder. He was located in London, living under an assumed name, and newly married. He was arrested and brought back to Suffolk to stand trial. Corder's trial in 1828 drew enormous crowds and became one of the most publicized cases of the era. With evidence such as Maria's body found exactly where Anne's dreams indicated, Corder's handkerchief tied around Maria's neck, and his letters designed to conceal her death, the court convicted him of murder. He was hanged at Berry Street, Edmonds, before a massive crowd. Without Anne Martin's repeated dreams showing the burial site, Maria's father may not have ever been motivated to search and eventually find her remains. And that reminds me a lot of Esther Shue.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking the
Her
same thing,
mom.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah, her mom having the visions and stuff. Like Esther just would not leave her alone. Just kept telling her, look what he did to me.
Mm-hmm. As
That's the
soon as
same type thing.
Yeah, as soon as you mentioned the mom having the
Mhm.
visions, that's all I thought was, of Esther appearing into her mother, like in the room, and her neck, having the yeah. I had the exact same thought.
When did the Greenbrier? Do you remember when the Greenbrier ghost thing happened? Like when that murder happened?
I mean, not off the top of my head.
Um, 1897,
1897. That is correct.
and this was okay. So that happened after this, because his trial was in 1828. Nice. Okay, so near one another, different countries.
Mm-hmm.
Because Greenbrier was, here, of course. But okay, interesting. Yeah, they're very similar.
There's a long, uneasy history of the dead speaking to the living, especially when violence has cut a life short. Across cultures and centuries, people have described the same pattern. When a truth is buried, the one who carries it sometimes finds a way to push it upward. Sometimes it comes as a dream that feels too sharp to be imagination. Sometimes it arrives as a voice in a trance, a vision that won't let go, a sudden knowing that doesn't belong to the person who feels it. And sometimes it comes through the people who are most open to it, the grieving, the intuitive, the ones who can't stop listening. We like to imagine that modern investigation has outgrown all of this. We have forensics and databases, DNA, digital footprints. But even with all of that, there are cases where the trail goes cold and the evidence runs out. And in those moments, law enforcement has not always stood apart from the strange. There are documented cases where detectives have officially consulted psychics and mediums, not as a last ditch superstition, but as one more tool when every conventional method failed. Sometimes it was quiet, tucked into the margins of a report. Other times it was acknowledged openly, a department admitting that a psychic's description of a location or a body or a suspect was too precise to ignore. These moments sit in an uncomfortable place, not quite supernatural, not quite procedural. A psychic describing a body's location with uncanny accuracy. A dream revealing a burial site no one had searched. A trance naming a killer and the stolen items he kept. These aren't the majority of cases, and they aren't the ones police departments like to highlight, but they exist in the documented record of criminal investigation. The strange corners where intuition and the unexplainable blur together. What makes these stories so compelling is that the information the living received wasn't symbolic or poetic. It was specific, it was verifiable, it was correct, and it arrived only after the victim was gone. That's the thread connecting all the cases. Each one sits in that liminal space where the dead seem unwilling to let their story end in silence. Each one shows a moment when the living becomes a vessel for something they shouldn't have known. And each one reminds us that justice doesn't always come from the methods we're comfortable with. Sometimes it comes from the places we don't want to admit we believe in.
And when you look at these cases together, Teresita Baza, Ashley Halley, George Carroll, Maria Martin, you start to see how thin that boundary can become. Each story begins with silence, a missing woman, a vanished father, a body no one can find, a truth no one can reach. And then something shifts. A dream sharpens into a map, a voice rises in a trance, a psychic sees what no one else could. A family member wakes with a certainty they can't explain, and the investigation, stalled and exhausted, suddenly has a direction again. What makes these moments so difficult to dismiss is that the information didn't drift in like folklore. It landed with precision. Jewelry hidden in a killer's home, a body buried in a specific patch of woods, bones beneath a basement floor, a grave beneath a barn, details that were later confirmed by detectives, coroners, and courts, details that changed the course of real investigations. And this is where the phenomenon becomes impossible to file away as coincidence, because law enforcement has, at times, stepped into this space willingly. Not just in whispers or back channels, but in official consultations, logged tips, and acknowledged leads. Not because they believed in spirits, but because they believed in the possibility that someone or something might know what they didn't. When a case is frozen in place, even the most rational investigator will sometimes follow the one thread that moves. These stories don't ask us to choose between science and the supernatural. They simply show us what happens when the two brush up against each other. When a detective follows a psychic's description and finds a body exactly where she said it would be. When a family digs because a dream won't leave them alone and their father is waiting beneath the concrete. When a trance reveals a killer's name and the evidence falls into place behind it. Each case is its own world, its own tragedy, its own strange path to justice. But together they form a quiet chorus, a reminder that the dead do not always stay silent, and the living do not always refuse to hear them. Justice in these rare moments becomes a collaboration between worlds, a hand reaching up from the dark, and another reaching down to meet it. And maybe that's the truth at the heart of all of this. Not that ghosts solve murders or that psychics hold secret knowledge, but that the human need for answers is so powerful it can cross boundaries we don't fully understand. The dead want to be found. The living want to know what happened. And somewhere in that narrow space between wanting and knowing, these stories take shape. Thanks for listening to this episode of Shifting Veils, where the truth hides in the dark and we aren't afraid to look.